So now we can get started. So the presentation is about unlocking the collective intelligence with business agility, and that it actually, you need more than agile teams to be able to do this. So let's get started. Let's see, I hope this one works now. So what are the biggest pains that most organizations might feel today? So I'm, as a designer, I really like to look into, so what are the pains and what problems are we actually solving? So one of the things is that we have low ability to actually plan for the unknown in the way we actually do our planning and delivery today in many organizations. So we analyze and plan for what we can see and not for the unexpected. So reality a lot of times come and hit us after we've had already made a plan. So this is one big problem, of course, for many organizations today. And that we have too long time to make decisions. So we need decisions, and it might have to travel high up in the organization for us to make the decision and then back again in different ways that we handle that in many organizations today. But this takes too much time. So lead time on decisions is too high. So when we actually get the decision, most of the times we actually need a new decision. And we have low organization capacity, both because of that we're handling too many things at the same time. So we're working with simultaneous stuff ongoing all the time. And this causes us to task switch. So if you're working on one thing, you have 100% capacity for that. And that gives a lot of speed, of course. But if you're working on 5 things at the same time, maybe 5 projects, that actually causes you to task switch, which actually ends up that you have 80% going to task switching, which is only a big cost and doesn't really deliver any value. So only 20% of your time actually contributes to value. And also we have the aspect of group versus team. So if we have work groups or separate teams, which are not really working on the same things together, they don't have the focus and they can't collaborate on the same things, then we have very low performance in the organization and we can't really work with the maturity of the team. So these are 2 aspects that actually gives us low organizational capacity. And we have a lack of customer focus. So we might deliver too many things. We might come up with a big plan like we talked about in the beginning, and this plan continues and delivers on, and it contains a lot of stuff that won't really be needed to deliver customer value. So instead, we should maybe only deliver the 20% that actually is used a lot.
One we use on our training. Yeah.
So I think we have Eleonora. She is speaking. Pernilla, are you maybe handling that? To mute. Good. So if we only focus on delivering the 20% and maybe the 16% that is actually used sometimes, this will be much better for everyone because it will cost less to deliver and also to maintain continuously in the future. So less feature and less complexity will decrease the costs. So this is usually a problem that we can't do this in organizations today. And we have low employee engagement. So different surveys gives us different numbers, but they're about the same, all of them. So 16% only in the organization is fully engaged and 84% is just coming to work to get their paycheck. And of course, this is a huge problem for many organizations. And we have an inability to collaborate due to having different priorities. We have different projects going on across the organization in the different silos and in different departments. And we can't really collaborate and deliver on these together. So why doesn't it really help then to have agile teams? Shouldn't that be enough? Maybe not. So if we only have agile teams in one silo, which most of the times we actually do, so it could be within marketing, it could be within IT maybe, it doesn't really give the end-to-end value. So it only decreases lead time with one part of the actual end-to-end lead time. So this is a common problem that we do like this. And then we might need to actually have buffering, different kinds of way to translate how we do things within the agile part of the organization to communicate and to have transparency towards the rest of the organization. So 2 different parallel systems are going on at the same time. Instead, if we would have enterprise agility across the organization, this would decrease the lead time end to end and make us much quicker. So this is where we want to be. And we want to do that on the top layers, of course, across the organization in the leadership, and also in all the different layers in the organization to actually help people to collaborate across the organization. So this means actually reducing and eliminating the waiting time that we have. So if we see that we have handovers in between people and teams and departments, these are the actual things that we need to delete, to remove all the waiting time in between work actually being done, and follow that and make sure that all these people who are needed to deliver value end to end actually can belong to the same team. If we do that, we will decrease lead time enormously in the organization. So what can we expect more from agility in the enterprise? So half the lead time many times, moving from traditional to agile in the full organization, so at least half the lead time. Strategic flexibility, so of course we can change our plan continuously and we can redirect where we want to focus, and we can have teams focusing on what's actually happening right now instead. And we can have innovation because people can collaborate in a much better way. They can solve real problems together, and we can make sure that they actually always have the people who they need to collaborate with available because they can be in the same team. Pernilla, can you just one question, can you see, yeah, I'm just wondering so that we actually have the videos that we need here. I think we do. And increase quality. So by having everyone working on the same thing and focusing on delivering customer value, actually getting them closer to the customer and actually take ownership of what they deliver, they can always work on increasing quality and making sure that what teams actually deliver is actually valid for the customer and deliver customer value, as well as actually working in the long run. And it's fun. Having the ability to actually deliver value as a team and working in a team, this increases the joy that people feel. And this will also increase motivation, of course. So changing and transforming from a traditional organization with maybe just one piece of the organization or pockets working agile might actually increase employee happiness, qualitative deliveries, and business growth. And we're going to look a little bit more into this, how this can actually be done. So some of the keys to this collective intelligence. Where we usually find that we need to start is looking at this theory X and Y, which is something that comes from the 50s, 60s, created by Douglas McGregor. So it's not something new at all. But if you look at organizations today, most of the structures that we have in the organization are based on this theory X, which actually means that we see people as lazy, maybe not so intelligent. We need to have managers who can do the thinking, and the workers should only do the work. We separate thinking and doing. And to be able to make people do the work, we need to bribe them with money. So this is the thinking, which is the old type of thinking that many organizations actually already, or still are actually promoting and based on this thinking. But if you think of yourself, I think none of you would actually say that you are this kind of X people, because we're not. These people don't exist at all. But the structures in the organization that we have make people to become like this. So instead, if we look at the Y type in theory, we believe that people are smart, they are brave, they're intelligent, they can solve problems together if they understand the purpose and if they actually can change and contribute to the goal and what we're actually doing. So this kind of thinking is what Agile is built on, and most modern ways of thinking of organization. So this is where we want to be. This is where we need to go with our organization, to base our organization on this belief. So still, we see that bureaucracy is increasing by 7% per year in organizations today. And this has, of course, been going on for a very long time. So if you have an old organization, like in the presentation I did previously, we had some people saying they had organizations that were about 50 years old. Of course, then you might have a lot of bureaucracy, controlling functions. So this decreases the flexibility of the organization and focus only on control. So a bad system will beat a good person any time or every time. This is a saying by Edward Deming, and this is actually very, very true in most organizations today. So this is horrific. So we need to create a system and have a leadership shift, so to be able to deliver on this and grow the business, as we see on this horizontal axis, and growing the people. So by doing this, we can actually make things work better also in the future. So having a transformational leadership and moving up in this graph is what we need to do. So have more of this transformational leadership, which is based on the why view, and being inspiring, motivating, having compassionate and caring leadership, and acting as role models as leaders. So this is where the traditional agile leadership is. But traditional leadership in most organizations are below this red line, which is the paradigm shift, where we have conventional leadership, where we strive for agreement, interventions might be needed. So we go down and fix things. And we use the carrot and stick and maybe over control to make sure that people do the right thing. So these things are based on the X view. And the latest research that we have actually shows that we also have destructive leadership below the X line. So this is very destructive. And if you have these kind of managers and leaders in your organization, that will hold everyone back. And the research says that the best way to deal with this is actually to remove these people. So it's really, really bad for the organization. But if you as an individual, as a leader and as a manager, can move up and have more of your whatever you do in your organization be above the red line and have transformational leadership, you will grow people, and by that grow the business and the organization. So where do you start? You need to start, of course, with the leadership team and with yourself to create a cross-functional leadership team that helps to support the organization to become high performance, so the business performance team. So if you're an executive team, you work with those people and actually collaborate on solving problems to help the organization perform the best way they can. So I am the CEO, the Chief Enabling Officer. That's a new way of looking at that role. And we need to manage the system, of course, to enable people to perform in a good way. So not performance management and not managing the people. They will manage themselves if the system actually enables them to do a good job. So one of the things that we need to do a lot of times is to create a shared view of current state. So where are we right now? This is one of the first things that we need to do. So this is an example of where we actually show the different problems that I have in the beginning and that are on the left side, and how different people in the organization actually view that problem. Is it a problem to them? Then it's a red sticky note, or if it's a yellow, it's okay, maybe green, it's fine. And different people in different parts of the organization probably view different problems in different ways. So by doing this, we can enable people to see the same view and act on these things together, collaboratively solve problems. And maybe map products and services to find where we can have valuable collaborations. So this is always something that we need to do too, to see what are the things we actually need to work on, to see where we can find valuable collaborations and form teams that can work on that continuously over time. And maybe set design principles for the organization. So this is something that will help us if we do this in maybe a collaborative way as well. Invite people who are interested to do this. This is from a bank in Sweden called Avanza. The first 6 principles that they put together based on where they wanted to be in the future. So this will help you, and you can look at this in the future, and you can move towards this and create small experiments on the different areas to actually see if you improve or not, and help the organization to have the same view of where you want to be. And set clear and ambitious targets. So we can use a different way of doing this. And in most organizations today, I would say that I see it's very difficult for people to understand what they do, if that actually connects to a business strategy and what they should prioritize based on that. So the different ways of doing this, OKRs is one way of doing it, objectives and key results. We're going to see some examples of that. Or you could have company bets, which is something where you align everyone towards the same thing. Or you could set missions, which is something we will also look a little bit on. And that's where you actually put take down a strategy and actually connect that directly to a team over a period of time. And ambition to action, that's also a different way of doing it. So there are different models that you can use, but you need to find a way to help people to get aligned, and you need to make these ambitious and brave so that people actually engage in this and believe in this and see the value that it should deliver to the customers. So this is brave targets and results from Dandy People. So we're showing some of our last year's OKRs that we had that we should give back to the community like we're doing now, that we want our customers to love us and want us more and more, of course. So we want to do a good job, and we want our customers to actually want more of us, not because we are needed to help them, but maybe because they want to spread the word about what we do, and maybe have others actually take us in to help them with the same thing. And have a sustainable pace in the organization. This is also something that we need to work on, collaborate on, and find different ways of doing it. And being thought leaders in different areas that we find important. So these are some of the directional goals that we put up and key results that we wanted to have during the last year. And here's an example of where we supported 3, which is a telecom organization in Sweden, to create these kind of objectives and key results, bottom up from 200 people and around, 25 teams. So these OKRs were set to help with the change in the organization. So based on the vision and the goals that they put for a year, they put 4 different objectives in different areas and 3 different key results based on that goal that the teams could work on and align so that they can actually help each other to solve problems between the teams as well. So this was a really good way to enable the collective intelligence in the organization and solve problems between teams, which could be one thing that is needed in many agile organizations today where we have teams. And aligning the organization with the strategy, so help the organization to actually organize themselves around what's most important and around the customer, of course. So if we have teams, they have, of course, 100% time to use if they're not doing task switching, because then it will be only 20% maybe. So we could have company bets. This would align teams towards the same thing. So it means that the whole organization might is needed to actually deliver to create value, maybe on a deadline because of something that's happening. Or we could set up team missions which will create autonomy towards a mission which is in connection to the strategy and where we want to be in the future with our products and services. This will create autonomy for the team to make decisions based on this on their own, which will increase innovation, of course. And we can have this kind of bucket, as you could say, which create autonomy and alignment, where team actually helps each other. So by doing that, we enable the teams to actually work on the same target or mission for some time if that's needed. So it could be that some other team's mission is actually more important than our own mission during this time. So in crisis like this, of course, then we might focus everything on just solving whatever we have on our hands right now. And maybe everyone should focus on that. So that's a change of plan, but in an agile organization, that would be very easy because that might be a new company bet, and just pause all team missions and maybe just work on keeping everything up and running. So by doing this, you create a strategic flexibility in the organization, which is very easy then to adapt to new big thing that comes, or just to deliver value continuously over a long period of time. So in an agile organization, all teams who deliver in services or products, they will also be responsible for taking care of that afterwards. So there will be no maintenance team and no budget for maintenance, because all of that will be in one team. So if we do this, we can have this kind of leadership and management where we get people aligned to solve one problem or several problems, but they all connect to the things that we want to prioritize in the organization right now. And most of the times, of course, from traditional organizations based on projects and project organizations, we need to move from this, because this is what's causing the task switching, to actually product organizations with agile teams. And most of the times you have to do this maybe stepwise a little bit. So this is an example of where we're doing this right now. We started in December to do this, to map all the different things that were ongoing. So a lot of the times the project budget is one budget for innovation and new development. And then you have the maintenance, which people are also working on. But there's really no one who has this one picture of what everyone's working on and what's actually taking time. So by starting to do this, this is like pulling it in one straw and see what pops out. But this is a very structured way of understanding current state and actually move towards a product organization. And creating a strategic leadership area. This is something that when I had the last presentation in Swedish a couple of weeks ago, this was the one thing that they were most interested in. And we see that in many organizations. So in many Agile organizations too, it's very difficult for the executives and the leadership to see what's going on. So it kind of gets this kind of a fuzzy fog when you have Agile teams working. They're working on things, but you don't really know what's going on. So you need a strategic portfolio level where you actually see all the investments that you have right now, what the teams are working on, what their hypotheses are on what they should be working on, and follow up continuously on what's going on. And also look at the flow of the organization and the value that the organization brings. So by having this visual space where you continuously meet and you actually get information from the organization, and you can see everything happening here right now and make decisions continuously on a strategic level. So giving the leadership team and the executives a shared mission and create an actual team so that they actually work as a team with a shared focus and support each other to work on what's most important for the organization. This is a lot of times what's needed. And their job is to actually create flow in the organization and to help to prioritize what's most valuable. And we talk about something that we call management areas that you can see on the right-hand side. So as an individual of part of the leadership team, I might only work in one of these areas, which might be very different from how it is right now. So you might be responsible for the people, the product, technology, if you have that, of course, and the process. And all leadership teams in the organization usually have these areas. So these are the things that we might focus on. And of course, we have financial and other parts as well that needs to be part of this. But we have different areas and we all combine our knowledge and competence to deliver value together as a team. And if we have teams, we can dynamically allocate strategies to fixed teams. So when we work with teams, we want them to be high performing, like we saw in the curve in the beginning. We don't want them to be dysfunctional teams that have low maturity and deliver at low pace. We want them to be high performing so that they can actually solve problems and deliver in high pace and take care of whatever will happen. So by keeping them together for at least 6 months, maybe a year, we will have high performing teams that will deliver maybe at a couple of 100 more % than a more dysfunctional maybe work group would do. And we allocate new strategies on teams so they can actually maybe pull from what's most important and what we want to happen. So to enable this, most of the times we need to change our budgeting. So the budgeting process is most of the times in many organizations the glass roof that holds this dynamic planning and business agility back in the organization. So a traditional budget is targets, resource allocation, prognosis, and all of this is packed together. And you plan for this and you make all these decisions once a year, most of the times. And once this budget is done, what happens then? Then Corona came and everything, of course, needs to change. But this is a long process to be able to change things. And it's usually a long process to come up with a budget too. So this is a wasteful process that doesn't really support the flexibility and dynamic that you need in a VUCA world. So instead, you need to separate these different things. So you work with the target as an impact goal. So what would we actually like to see happen, the impact? And we work with resource allocation as one separate thing, and that's actually the teams that we have. So how many teams do we need? And prognosis. So how does it look ahead? What do we think might happen? These are three different things, and we separate them so that we actually can improve them one by one. So it's a two-step process, and continuously we will work on improving the different areas. So by doing this, we can create a pool-based system in the organization. We can have flexible planning, and we can make sure that our teams are always focusing on what's most important, and that they also have the actual capacity that they need, and also the competence that they need, because they can change that over time if we do like this. So this is actually from Beyond Budgeting. This is how you work in Beyond Budgeting, and that's something that has actually been working on and that actually existed for 20 years. So we have Handelsbanken, we have Equinor, former Statoil, big companies working like this. So this is not something new, but this is something that really, really plays well with Agile and handling of VUCA world.
So, Mia, yes? I have a couple of questions, just short ones that came in. Yes. One is from Malin Carling, and she's wondering, should there be one leadership team per value stream?
Okay, so you don't really need to have value streams, but you could have value streams. You can have like leadership teams that could be 4 people or 3 people or something that works with several teams. So if you have a group of teams that actually deliver value together towards maybe one type of customer, or maybe one part of the customer journey, you could maybe call that a value stream if you want. And then of course that could be one leadership team. So yes, I would say probably, if it's not too big. So if the value stream would be hundreds of people and maybe many, many teams, then maybe you need more then, and maybe divide it into smaller pieces. Any more questions?
Yes, so Andres Concha was asking, does the adoption of these methods start from the bottom up or top down?
Well, as we've seen previously, most of the times maybe bottom up, but it's difficult to change these kind of things that happens in the top, so budgeting and those kind of things. So nowadays, I would say if you want business agility across the organization, you need to start at the top, but it's good if you can go both ways. So both bottom up and top down. So you can meet and you can align. So that's why maybe OKRs for change, having shared visions and having this shared understanding of what the pains are in the organization, and maybe create this kind of a design, design system for the organization together. Doing these things will actually help you align bottom up and top down. So I would say both.
Okay. So Malin and Anders, you will have to just let me know if there was, if this was the answer that you were looking for. Yeah, just let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
So we have Prognosis, which is one big thing in many traditional organizations. The traditional prognosis that we do once a year, we allocate the budget and we follow up on this. It might end up that we have a lot of money in the end and we didn't really have time to spend it on what we needed because it was difficult. So this is a very tricky thing to handle over a year. And it's not really helping us to realign and finding the flexibility that we need in the organization. It's very, very difficult. So instead we want to make it more dynamic. And depending on how dynamic you need to be, you could have these reoccurring prognosis coming, more of a rolling forecast. And that could be on maybe quarters or months or years, depending on what type of flexibility you need and how far you can actually look. So right now with Corona, we can't look that far. So we have actually these kind of meetings very often, and then it's just to see how we're doing, so we can actually make decisions based on facts and where we are right now, instead of where we thought we would be long time ago and trying to change the budget, because we want to change what we do, our actions instead. So by doing this, we can actually say yes to the dance. So if we have new possibilities coming up, maybe new customers, maybe new great people that we want to bring in, we can do that because we're not locked into a budget that we set a year ago or something. And it's also, if we have these possibilities across the organization, maybe based on different customers and different areas that we want to work in, and not based on the silo that we're in, we can do a much better job together. So instead of maybe having a lot of money in one silo and not in the other, which might mean that we can't do a marketing campaign because the marketing budget is out, but IT has a lot of money. We might need to maybe do some cooking of the books or trick the system to be able to allocate money to what we actually need to do. We can do that in a much better way. We don't need to trick the system if we do like this. And we can always say yes to the dance. And we might have, like we see on the right side, that we have different cadences that these kind of maybe meetings and plannings and prognosis will come in. So we have day-to-day operational, of course, planning that we do and replanning. We have weekly, monthly, maybe quarterly, yearly, of course. But the yearly, I mean, like we have in Dandy, we have our OKRs, that's a yearly thing that we could change whenever we want, of course, but we might have that set on a yearly basis. But it's much better if you don't maybe connect it to the actual parts of the organization. So rewards, this is also a huge thing that we need to look at to enable people to collaborate. So we need to make sure that we actually reward the type of behaviors that we want to see. So if you want to see collaboration, you want to see deliveries that are valuable and not something that you promised, and not maybe something that you promised and that will actually affect your salary or your career. So you want to remove all those things and reward people for maybe collaborating and delivering value and performance against maybe competitors. So be better than other organizations or products. That should be valuable and that should be rewarded. And it should maybe be the same rewards to everyone, or it might be rewards to teams, and it might not even be money. So it could be something different. So thinking differently here and removing those kind of structures that doesn't really help people to collaborate and do what's most important right now. So what is the minimum viable bureaucracy in your organization? That's the big question. So removing the hindering structures that are bureaucracy that we don't need, and just keep the ones that actually support what we need to do and how we want to work, or maybe create new ones. This is a job that you need to get started to do now. So set ambitious targets, start small, learn quickly. This is hugely important, and start now. And don't try to find a perfect plan. Find someone who can help you, who has done this before. That's usually greatly valuable, but don't try to figure out the perfect plan now, because it's not going to exist. That plan is not existing at all. So by doing this and adjusting the system, you will enable employees to become the heroes that they are and always were. You will have superheroes in your organization. So I just want to promote the next webinar that we have next Tuesday, April 21st, where we will talk about how you can get Agile superpowers and boost your career. This is, of course, within the same topic like we're talking about now, but more from maybe a personal perspective than we've talked now. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And Pernilla, do we have any more questions? I think we have a lot of time. Maybe I speed it up a little bit.
It's because you did it in English, right? You're faster in English. Alexander Krause, sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Kruse in Swedish.
Oh yeah, could be if he's Swedish. Well, Alexander, do you want to ask your question directly to Mia? Then just raise your hand, because your question is really a tricky one.
Oh, good.
So let's
and we can talk. So you can put him on unmute and we can talk. That's good.
Well, it's only you who can do that, actually. So he just raised his hand. So unmute.
Oh, I'll see what I can do. Let's see what I can do. I'll have to talk.
And
we can possibly see you too if you have a video. Can you do that? Can you see him? Just a picture, but that's cool. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Ah, perfect. Okay. The question actually is, whose job is this system design? Because I believe it's actually the new management job to design systems where the magic can happen. But normally, like to get the authority to be in one of these positions, to really take decisions on the system, you normally have to be like very long in that company. It takes years to get a budget. It takes years to get the authority. And once you're at the top, the question is, do you want to let go again, or do you want to learn something new, or are you so stressed that you just don't have the time for that? So the question is how to make managers learn, how to like teach them what their new job might be, and how to get rid of like top managers that do not want to adapt to the change.
Okay, so if we talk about get rid of people, I'm not really sure if that's what you want to do, but you might want to have them thinking about how they can do this differently, because they probably want the same thing. They want to increase the business. They want to perform better, because that will, of course, make them become better managers and deliver on their promise that they had previously when they came in. So maybe coaching them to saying that it could be done differently, and maybe sharing stories of how you've done this differently. So help them to understand how these different things would play out in the organization if they would implement them. So that could be different ways that you could do that. So maybe bringing them to see other organizations who has done this in different ways, to visit and share stories and maybe do simulations. But of course, I agree with you. This is the job of the manager, like this slide is saying, to manage the system, to create this new system. And managers and organizations that will do that will perform better than others. Yeah. So of course,
but you said
will possibly die.
you said in the talk sometimes you have to also let go of some people.
Yes.
And this is also something we mostly do not dare to talk about, as when going for a transformation, then you somehow invite people and look for the willing, and maybe not everybody is willing, as you might question like everything that was a career so far. So we don't have questions like what is a career in the agile world, and without that answer, people will stick like to old careers, old bonus systems, and all that stuff. So actually,
these are all stuff that we need to look into. So one of the things, of course, what is causing these managers to act like this? Probably it's the system. So they are probably not bad people if we look at it from the X and Y perspective. So if we believe that they are good people who want to do a good job, but they're acting like this, maybe based on the system that will reward that type of behavior, or maybe it actually forces them to do their job in that kind of way. And removing people from the organization, that should be people who have destructive leadership, which is a little bit different than actually maybe just acting on the processes, but it might seem the same.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, Pernilla?
Well, we have some love to you from Francisco.
Okay, thank you.
He is so much in love with your designs, and I imagine it is difficult for someone who doesn't know designs to really put it on paper. That's what he's telling me, and he's looking for ways in how to communicate their ideas on Agile and the Agile transformation, and how to do that with illustrations and the communication.
In the organization? Yeah, yeah, okay. So picture says more than 1,000 words. So it's usually a good way. So you could take a training in visualization, and maybe you could learn about storytelling. Could be a good thing. So these two in combination. And of course, you can use our posters, the materials that we have too. That's always for free. And we have our online trainings where we have a lot of videos like this that you can maybe show and share. But otherwise, it's just hard work. So practice, I would say, and maybe find one style that is your style, and just go on with that and practice. So I've been practicing illustrations since I was a child. My father was an illustrator. So it's been something that I enjoyed my full life.
There you go, Francisco.
Thank you. So, anyone else who wants to raise a hand and say something?
We have a question from Hisham Bakir. Hisham, do you want to ask me your question directly? You just raise your hand. Yes, he wants to, so you can just unmute him.
Good. Hello, Hashim.
Hello, Mia. Thank you very much for this webinar.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding when you said that the system should how do you say that, regarding collaboration? If you want the system to go in an increased collaboration, then you have to value that collaboration. And most of the organizations I've been working for, they are looking at the individual performance instead of the team performance.
Exactly.
And I don't understand how you can make that shift. So my question was, how can you evaluate the individual contribution to a collective performance? That seems to me very tricky.
Yeah, so it is a tricky thing, and it's maybe one thing that most organizations have kind of left on the side, and this is what's holding maybe the people back from actually doing what's needed. So you need to onboard HR and maybe finance as well to the transformation that you're doing. So maybe by creating this kind of transformational executive team that actually helps to remove these kind of structures that is maybe holding you back, they can help to change. But removing all different kind of rewards that connects to me as an individual and my performance is a good thing to do. So try to see, we could see in organizations that maybe people, they have goals that are individual goals over a year, which are in connection to an actual strategy in the organization. That seems maybe a wonderful thing to do, but then it's very difficult to collaborate in a team. And if the organization changed the strategy, people will not be willing to let go of that. So they might work in on a different agenda than what you want them to do, because you want them to work on what's most important right now, like Corona. We want to solve this problem, not something that you promised your manager 6 months ago. So you need to talk about these things, and most of the times you need to understand which are these kind of rewards and connections that you have to individuals before you can actually remove them. So if you are in the organization, you might already understand, and then you need to collaborate with those people who can help to remove them. And maybe start, if you have a couple of Agile teams or one part of the organization, try to do that there to create a system that is Agile around the teams and see what that actually will give when it comes to performance.
And it's true, that's one of the difficulties we have. It's this team culture is not, we have a lot of groups and silos. So
And in most organizations, if you have an expert culture, it's also maybe that they want to stick to their role, and that might be the only career that they see to become better and have a higher salary and become a manager. So you need to find new ways to define your career, like Alex was talking about, and that can only be done if you work with HR. So you need to bring them in to actually have HR in your maybe Agile coaching team, if that's what you have, to create a cross-functional change team that support these leadership teams. That's usually a good thing to do. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's very difficult. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And now Sunil has raised his hand.
Okay.
So let's see. Yeah.
Hi, Sunil.
Hey, Mia. Hello there.
Hi.
I have a question regarding how we combine the Agile approaches together with architecture. Very often we see very good presentations like how to become a good Agile organization, Agile teams, Agile culture. And I think that's really powerful in totality. I'm quite influenced by example, Agile fluency model that also gets reflected in some of these slides. But on the other side, being a solution architect, we look quite a lot about how we still keep the software products building in a very an architectural way where we can keep things together. There are a lot of similar architectural community talks about how important it is to work with an agile architecture methods or frameworks, etc. But very rarely we find a combination of these two being presented to the teams or to the management or to the organization. They still work in two different streams. Is there any better way to combine this?
So you're saying that architects are working by themselves?
No. The importance of architecture to work in agile organizations is not being communicated is the same way as more agile frameworks or agile practices.
Okay, yeah. So what I would say, so architecture and technical leadership is needed in the leadership team. So you have that knowledge and understanding in your leadership team. So to be able to support, of course, those things as well, in combination with the product strategy, the people and the structures. And maybe look at how you can create, if you want to have a dynamic organization, you also need to have a dynamic infrastructure and architecture. And so, of course, the architecture and infrastructure reflects the organization. So to be able to change the organization from the traditional silos, the architecture and the infrastructure also need to change. And that's usually maybe a long-term plan that you need to have and do that continuously. And I would say that understanding and capabilities in all teams around the architecture need to be there. And there need to be architectural understanding and knowledge. So not so much an architecture. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, you're right.
Yeah, so work on that, how you can spread the knowledge, how you can gain that capability within the leadership team and all teams that you have, and enable the teams to actually work on the things that they need to work on in a good way, so maybe it doesn't affect others, and continuously work on improving that part, because that's one huge part of the capability of the organization.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for the question. So any more questions?
Yes, Lisa. Lisa has is next. Lisa Lewick.
See if I can find. I need to move a couple of things here. Yeah, Lisa Lewick. Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
Hey.
Good morning here. Happy afternoon there.
Yeah. Good morning. Hi.
For your time today, I really appreciate this. My question is on the leadership. What if the leader inherently believes they're transformational, but they're actually destructive? So when they show up to the team, they're very arrogant, they're very demanding, but they feel like wholeheartedly they're transformational and collaborative. How do you help them with awareness on how they're showing up without sticking it to their eyes or poking them, you know?
Yeah. So it's quite common that you might believe that you have a different type of leadership style, but also that person probably don't have that destructive leadership every time. So sometimes that person might be transformational. So you could try to highlight when they're actually doing something good, so they understand, okay, now I did this in a transformational leadership way, and start to reflect on the other things that they do by themselves, maybe. And of course, training is a good thing, and maybe train people in leadership groups, but also individually, and give them assignments, and buddy up leaders across the organization to share their learnings and how they're actually doing things. That could be a good thing. And try to have people to buddy up so that they can reflect each other's behaviors and support, and try to actually change how they do things, and talk about that. But I think they need to themselves, of course, understand this. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And if they don't understand and have too much of that destructive behavior, because that's, if you have that and you have that all the time, of course, then you need to be removed from the organization and that place, because you're holding back that leadership team, your department, or maybe the whole organization if you're an executive. Okay. So that could be crucial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, do we have any more?
Was actually everyone waiting in line,
okay.
But you still have time for a few more questions. If anyone else wants to raise their hand, you can just do. Oh, Eleonora.
Eleonora, she's raising her hand. Okay, Eleonora, I think you are permitted to talk. It says here. Are you?
Unmute myself. Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to ask. I mean, really, I love. I love your illustration. I have to say, I've used it as an example. I've used it in some of my training. So kudos to you. So I really love it. Really, thank you for what you're doing for the Agile community. Really.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You don't have to duplicate effort, especially if that's not our skills to do. We can use yours and just say, this is from Dandy people.
Yeah.
So we do that.
That's fine. You can do that.
I really like the leadership thing you're talking about. What I wanted to say, you talk about silos. And I think one of the things you said in LinkedIn, was it last week that I answered about collaboration and continuous learning, which was really, really good and really I'm passionate about. And about the silo mentality. You said something about specialist skills or people that are really working, what's the word you use here? Not specialists, but they call it in some places where they call it specialists, where they work, the expert, you call it expert in this conversation here. And most companies I've worked with, I happen to be going to companies that are very traditional, trying to go into, which is a good thing. So learning, every time is a learning curve, moving to Agile ways of working, but they're actually really into starting from very expert skills, and the reward is based on those experts. And because also they're not built as a product company. So you have to start with them, getting them from the project mindset to the product mindset, so that they can understand working then as a team, working towards one product. Because as a specialist skills individual, they are working for a project as individual, and handover is a lot. So I know you have a lot of experience. How do you go about? We have other experience, but maybe your experience still can help because moving people from that mindset, because that is where you have mindset is where you have more specialist skills and handover, and moving them to product mindset.
Yeah. And
eliminating silos. That's when it kind of get to eliminating silos.
So one thing, of course, is changing the structures. So join in with HR and talk about this with them. So how you can reward another type of behavior, which is team behaviors that we want to have in collaboration, and having focus on what's most important. And actually, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, I created together with one of my colleagues a game to help them to reflect on this themselves, T-shape, talking about and experiencing how it is to use T-shape in the team, because that increased the pace of the team and delivery by 100%. If you have more of a generalist kind of view of individual competencies, that you actually broaden your competencies and help with more things, even though you're not the expert, you can kind of do those things as well. So helping them to understand what value this will bring to the organization, and making it clear what the purpose is for the organization and for the team. So the purpose is not for them to be perfect and experts in their role. Their purpose is to deliver value as a team. So the more I think you work with the team purpose and connect that to the customers and make sure that they actually are aligned in the team and help them to become a team and work with the T-shape and remove structures, then I think you will possibly help to change that culture. But it could be individuals who are not interested, who actually wants to leave that organization because they're more interested in whatever that expertise they're growing and becoming even better at that. So helping them to understand that they are needed and they still should be experts, but they need to share their expertise, and they shouldn't be threatened about that. So sometimes you might feel that, okay, I might lose my job if I help others to become better in this. So I want to keep it safe with myself, and you need to remove that fear. So in any transformation, you need to remove all these fears from managers, from experts, from anyone. And that should be done together with the HR team, and communicate clearly why you do this, for the purpose, and that people should not be afraid, because they will be needed.
I agree with you. I mean, also, in addition to that, I also add something called encourage mentorship. I work with HOJ, encourage the expert being mentors. You know, not sharing everything, but just mentors to those people that they have to work with as a team. And that works well for me too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you.
So that's a really good thing to have them become mentors and support others. That means that they will be experts of experts. So that could be one thing that they actually are interested in. So that's very good. Thank you, Eleanor. Okay, so maybe we're done.
No one else has raised their hand now. So
then, thank you.
Are you sharing this presentation and the recording? Are you going to share it on your site or something?
Yes, so we will publish it on our blog, and we will send you a link to the transcripted version as well. So you can share it with anyone. So it will be there. And you're welcome to this next webinar next week if you're interested. We will show a little bit how our online trainings actually work, that you can see here, that you can use in your organizations and maybe train yourself. So we have, we looked at now the leadership styles and all of that in the leadership training. We have team specific training and the Agile in a nutshell, where you get an understanding of why you need Agile and what Agile really is. And look into business cases and have games and other kinds of things. So we'll look a little bit into this and maybe how that can help and get you Agile superpowers as an individual and boost your career. That will be next week on Tuesday. So thank you very much for joining. It was really fun having you. So hope to see you soon again and have a really good day or evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.